So just to set us off, social commerce is set to rise to over 900 billion. I still have to get my head around that number by the end of this year, which is approaching really quickly. And it's set to rise to trillions, several trillions in 2028. Let's talk about what actually is social commerce and how did this concept grow to where it is today? Who wants to take that one on first?
Oh, well, I'll happy enough to jump in. I think it seems quite it's kind of not very well defined, just like that answer actually. But I've actually looked into quite a lot of the different papers around it, and there's been a lot of this trend was started off in China, and the behaviors and shopping behaviors which are a few years ahead of the West, and social commerce is a thing there, and it's becoming a thing in the West. I would say it's most definitely a thing already, but it's now becoming much more aware in terms of how people can tactically get behind it. But for me, I would define it as any kind of commerce revenue that has been driven, inspired by a person on social media. It is the human element of it. Now, what I'm not talking about is like, I don't think ads count. That's just like buying ads on a media platform where people's attention are. But it's about genuine human social content creation that is driving commerce, and so therefore social commerce. I think that's my definition anyway, and the one that I've sort of taken to heart.
Thank you. Dave, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll go with all that in a big way. It's I think social commerce is kind of a bit of a buzzword at the moment that hasn't been put into kind of layman's terms. I think what it is to your point, Paul, it is I think you can start, I think in marketing speak, we say creator-led. Creator-led commerce. And we don't say the word influence anymore, it's creator-led commerce, of course. But in layman's terms, I think it is that it's human-led. It's human-led, it's everyone. Everyone can now, from setting up a Shopify to setting up a Canva, as your kind of protocol, even TikTok, we have a shop destination now as well. It's anyone who has a phone and has a product or service can suddenly be a shopkeeper. That's essentially what it is. But then we can break it into the myriad of ways they can be in the places they can be in. I think when you're kind of alluding to China there, we've seen this with Douyin, our sister app, which is it's more the live shopping is what's coming over. And it's an interesting time because I think everyone thinks live shopping within QVC.
Yes.
but reality, it's someone in their office just with the phone and go, oh, here's our product, let's unbox it, and suddenly let's sell something. It's fascinating.
I love that analogy that you made with everyone's now their own personal shopkeeper without having that physical space. That's a great analogy.
I think social commerce as a term will change as the days, weeks, months go on. You know, I think if you think at the original definition of social commerce, I mean, it started in 2005 when Yahoo used to have customers actually just leaving reviews of product. That was considered social commerce. You know, if you ask everyday person right now, they probably still think it's so linked to social media actions on that. And again, like that's going to your point about anyone with a phone, but it can even be offline, online, you know, and that huge shift. But I think the possibilities are almost endless for what this world's going to be in social commerce. And we're all, you know, there's obviously leaders and luminaries in terms of what that looks like right now, but some of it's even beyond probably our wildest dreams of what that would be like.
That's a great point as well, Camilla, the change that we've seen. And I guess to go a little bit further into that, where have you three seen that customer behavior change over the last 10 years? And now coming in more specifically into the last couple of years, how has that consumer behavior changed?
I mean, I think the number one change is just how everyone shops. There used to be able to say to someone, I'm off shopping. I'm going shopping today.
I'm going to go shopping.
There's no such thing. People don't go shopping anymore. They're constantly shopping. I mean, if you want to put some other terms in, contextual commerce in terms of, you know, and in terms of where people are at any given time and where that's happening. But more importantly as well, that blend of wanting entertainment and community and social engagement within the act of the world of commerce as well, you know, I think is what I would say is the number one behavior changes.
It's not a linear place anymore.
No.
Nothing is. Click buy. Suddenly this immediacy is there. So we're constantly in shopping and transaction mode every.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very complicated world.
Like Camilla just mentioned, you don't have that, maybe you don't have that intention anymore. Oh, I'm going to go shopping. But then you also have the opposite intention as I'm not shopping. I'm on social media, but all of a sudden I've clicked on something and then I've realized, oh, I am shopping right now.
Yeah.
So it's that switch.
It's so varied though. You've still got some shopping habits, which there's still the traditional 8-9 touch points or talk about in marketing of what it takes to get to a sale. And then you have that compressed commerce where someone's not even looking for it. And they've gone from inspiration to checkout within app, within platform in space of 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We came up with research about, sorry, Walnut Limited came out with research on TikTok users. They found that 71% of them, when they come to the platform, get inspired to buy something or inspired by a brand or service.
Wow.
So the minute they come there to something, the propensity to purchase and engage with a brand just goes way up. So it's to your point, it's there to entertain, but suddenly commerce is just blending into it as well, into that psychology almost.
But it also is driven by who inspires them as well. You know, again, and I think we'll see that shift and again, but you know, take 5-10 years ago, it was often only those of influence, only the mainstream. You know, your peer-to-peer recommendation was always important, obviously, but that shift in terms of where you get who informs your thinking, you know, in that community piece. And I'm sure Paul will be, Penny, you want to say on that?
It is, I think that there is also it used to be a limited number of options. So trust didn't matter too much, right? Because you have, you know, if you went into a store, it'd be whoever had enough money to be able to advertise on one of the major TV channels, and actually your consumption behavior was somewhat limited. But now, actually, as you're saying, Dave, that the ability for us to whip up a Shopify store and sell anything, and then you have all the various different drop shipping that's going on through Amazon, actually trust then becomes like really hard because you're overwhelmed by decision. Your decision used to be limited not just by who was that. It could be that you were limited to this store or that store, because that's the only one that was in your high street. And then when you've got millions of choices, actually then how do I limit my choice? Then becomes the behavior then you have to do, who do I choose, who I trust more? And then it became about building trust, it became building reputation, the first of which was reviews. And then we've kind of compounded on top of that. We've got those various different things to try and tell you that, oh, there's only 5 left or 13 people are viewing at this right now. And you get the urgency and you get the panic. And then I think ultimately we're now moving to a stage of consumption behavior, which is dictated by various different people whom we choose to take information from, and as content creators that we choose to follow, that we choose to stream, that we choose to listen to, whoever it is, their opinions will shape our opinions, and we'll go with their opinions. And in this, I am also including our friends who we follow on Instagram and our family. We take messages from WhatsApp as well. But that's the way that we decide, because I think that we're reaching a stage of decision fatigue of every single person, that anything that can reduce that, anything that can make, yeah, you should go with this one, and therefore I don't need to then look at 15 different options and read the reviews and go down to the 1-star one to see if they're not so good. I just go, all right, my best mate says do this, I'm going to go with that because it's just easier.
It's that old adage of people buy from people.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Modern day on ladies selling. If it is, it's like it's Tupperware parties and it's at at scale.
Yeah.
Back full circle, some may say. So with this space, we have there's a number of different demographics, and I guess how do these different demographics play a part in the future of social commerce, and how do these different demographics drive revenue in different ways? Because we have a few different groups that are at play here that we've seen as different platforms have emerged.
TikTok, surely you guys are going to have more data and demographics than anyone else as you invade and secretly track everything that we're doing.
So what we've seen, and I think this kind of there's an interesting kind of cognitive dissonance or bias around TikTok, in our industry, is that it's for young people and it's just girls dancing.
Yes.
That's quite, it's dated. And also it's just a brand channel. So I'll get into that in a minute. But the fastest growing demographics we see are the 35 to 44 demos on the platform. Like,
Interesting.
I recall in the UK alone, I think the UK and US are quite similar in the breakdown. About 17 to 80% of the user base is in that cohort, and it's 44 plus there as well. And I think the reason being is it's growing these older demos are growing very quickly because it's not a social media platform, it's an entertainment platform.
Yeah.
And there's something there for everyone, like Book Talk, like feta cheese. We suddenly sell out feta cheese in the UK because people start to do things with it.
Recipe.
Yeah, like you see all these trends and phenomena happening, and it's a place where culture is just exploding. So, and because of that, because culture is exploding, culture for everyone, and all these microcultures and everything, that's where you start to see older demographics come in a very big way. And then they're spending like 120 minutes a day on the platform. So they're watching a film basically on TikTok equivalent. So, and then when we bring the brand side into it, it's gone from being a brand channel, it's now a performance channel. And there's also TikTok Shop there to bring the whole loop together. So if you see something in your feed, you can actually go to the brand shop or the creator shop and transact in the app. So it's a much different platform than people think it is, in terms of demos and usability and what's actually happening from a social commerce perspective.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to come at the question in a different angle, more from when we think about like different segments through the marketing lens of how you then approach that as well. I mean, for a long time, if you spoke to any marketing director and their team, they'd be, if you talk about driving commerce, social commerce, you'd be thinking about people with significant influence, probably as the primary channel. Whereas really, I think that needs to pivot completely. And you're already seeing that, but through down to thinking about your customer first and foremost. How do you really mobilize that engine? And ironically, we've always been focusing on people of influence to drive us new customers, but without using our existing customer base to actually drive that customer base further, and actually the authenticity and the power they've got by being an existing user anyway is way more authentic in the first place. But the other audiences that get me really excited as well is your employee base, experts, you know, a lot of these slightly more untapped world. I mean, there was a big project that was going on while I was at Charlotte Tilbury with Duel, and still is going on these days, which is Charlotte Tilbury's Magic Makeup Stars program, where we had 800 makeup artists working for the business. And actually, again, going back to my sort of that Avon ladies sort of comment that I made, you know, how do you turn, how do you use that world to supercharge and superpower what's going on in terms of that influence to then drive that broader demographic piece that you've got going on in terms of the actual end user.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We're seeing a Duel. I mean, we work with 50 odd brands around the world, and so we're seeing we're seeing all the different demographics I've been putting in from quite a wide lens, and yeah, something like Magic Makeup Stars with makeup artists, you see quite a few of those industry pros. But it doesn't stop there. You've got anyone who is a trusted node within a network who can influence someone's sale, is someone who can drive commerce socially, right? So through social. So yeah, you've got the makeup artists, but you've also got industry professionals such as climbing instructors, ski instructors, you've professional athletes, you have social creators and like fashionistas who's, you know, they are famous for their style or for their makeup tutorials, and so when they recommend a particular beauty brand, it has massive impact and it can drive revenue, but it comes from an authentic place because they are genuine experts in what they talk about. So I think that's what's really interesting, is it's going down to seeing who is the node that can influence people in the most authentic way, not the person who's got the most reach. And I heard actually from a TikTok creator the best definition that you referred earlier about how that we can't say influencers anymore. And they're creators, but actually I think that the idea of anyone who's creating content on a platform that's being consumed out in the world, that's a creator, but an influencer is someone who's famous. You know, we would have previously called them celebrities, but there's someone who's got they've been quantifiably given a fame score on their Instagram account or whatever that says, oh, this person has 4.3 million followers, therefore they're an influencer. But then there are all the other millions of people who are influential to a group of people, but it's not an insubstantial amount of people. If you look at Instagram, for example, 65% of people on there have more than 1,000 followers. So that basically means the majority of people can influence 1,000 people, and 1,000 people is basically a village.
1,000
so
true
you
fans.
can see 1,000 true fans that can really. And if you imagine if a brand would be able to get 1,000 people to go out, buy one of their products, and then tell one other person, I think every brand would jump at the opportunity, and that's kind of what we're allowing to happen now.
When you talk about the nodes, I think this is Tilbury, do you find the brands you're working with are kind of daunted by where do we find these people and who these people are? Because it's become to your point earlier, wild west. There's everyone out there. How are you working with brands to help them, guide them, and find these people?
We get this question every single day, and someone asked me earlier, what's the most common question? Is like, well, where do I find advocates, basically? And the answer always the same is they already exist. As you were saying, it's your customers. Like they live within the channels that you already have given someone the opportunity to engage with you, reach out to you, follow you. So the biggest of which is your biggest community is your customer community in your CRM, if you've got one, if you're particularly if you're a D2C brand, but also a social channel. It doesn't matter whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Those people who opt in to say, I am following you, I like your brand enough that I'd like to see content from you. Those guys are fans. And so if you can then say, hey, would you like to do something with us? And you kind of open up to them and they opt in, there is a kind of a meeting in the middle. There's a relationship building piece. And when they create content, when they go out there and they promote and they advocate, it comes from a very authentic place. And therefore, and it's that authenticity, it's that trust that converts. And we've looked at experiments, it can convert about 3 times higher. If just by the difference between a pay to play, like sort of pay me to pretend to like your brand influencer, and someone who's a genuine fan, side by side, they'll outperform like 3 times, which is quite remarkable.
We have lots of brands in our audience today. So yeah, absolutely take that advice. Start from within, look from within, and build out from there.
I also think you've got, I mean, the beauty of, TikTok has spurred that on, and there's other, other ways and other channels that's doing that right now. But you talked about democratization earlier, but how someone with, and you think, and Paul, you were talking about the sphere of influence, and from celebrity through to essentially a friend of ours, and that nano influence. But based on how the algorithm can work on TikTok, as we all know, someone can go, one piece of content can go famous overnight, let alone if that person has got that huge influence. I mean, I remember there was a cast member, which is one of this, what Sephora call their employees when I was at Tilbury, and this one cast member made this incredible piece of content showing the efficacy of a product that we had, and it went, I mean, I hate using the word viral. I don't think anyone should call it anymore, but I'm going to term it that.
Trending.
Trending. But one person that we didn't even know was in our brand ecosystem as an advocate for our brand essentially made more influence than all the Kardashians put together in terms of
such an impact. Yeah.
The looking within is an interesting way to see it, because we see this with some of the brands we're working with, the ones who kind of most leaned into the platform, trying to find ways to particularly create ads that convert. And quite often it's the employees in the room, especially the ones, the younger folk who are on the platform, who know the visual language, they know the identity, they know what's trending. And they're the one, and this is what I find is actually even more exciting. It's sort of figure of democratization. It's the actual, it's the creative directors of yesterday and all these things. They don't really get this new space. Whereas the younger folk in the companies, they're the ones who know what's going on. They know what's trending, they know how to engage, they know it's lo-fi, they know it's authentic. And they're the ones who are taking the brand or taking the product and service in the office and creating content, and that is performing incredibly well. So it's actually brands looking who they have in the office and empowering them to be the kind of creative leaders of tomorrow.
And it's not just the office, it's I think this is where brands are sitting on an untapped gold mine. I think you touched on it earlier, Camilla, is that in a store, if you're a retail brand, you will have thousands of store members, store associates, who, if 65% of them are on Instagram, they've got more than 1,000 followers, but they've also got, of those, they've got your product. They know your brand values, they know your brand narrative, they know how to tell that story, and they probably love the brand as well. And it comes from a pretty authentic place. And I think if you look at Lululemon, you guys got 25,000 store employees, and I think the way that you know whether there's someone who works for Lululemon in the room is they've probably already told you, right? They're head to toe Lululemon, and they talk about it all the time. But if you just imagine, okay, well, how do I weaponize that audience? 25,000 people each going out creating content, talking about their lives, their fitness, their products, and doing it, and making sure that lives natively on whatever platform they create for, the one that they work for, where their friends and their community live. It just is so authentic and so powerful.
The thing is, it's actually not that. This still seems daunting to brands, but it's actually not that hard when you start to break it down like that. It's actually look at what you have around you. It's more DIY. But it's a lot easier than writing briefs.
Traditional advertising.
Like briefs and briefs and briefs, and then the brainstorming is like, it's just get the phone, get the product service, and go play. And that's it. And to your point, is like looking around and who you have. You have an army of people who are advocates for your brand because they want to. They get competitive with each other as well. Like it's all there to sort of take. It's just a new muscle and mindset for brands to build.
And I think everyone feels very, on the brand side, I talk to a lot of much earlier stage businesses who are feeling super overwhelmed about where to start right now and how to solve it. And what I keep reminding them is, yes, there's some brands that are doing it brilliantly across thousands of people, but start small, start at home, start with 10 will impact another 10, which will impact another 10. It will grow, and more importantly, better to start where there's that authentic base to start from that you can then build off, versus trying to build inauthentic relationships with people that don't do it at scale.
And that's the key word, relationship. Is that if you want someone to go out and create on your behalf, they're going to do it because of often more than money. That's for sure. I mean, that will help. There's no doubt about that, but they'll do it. It's a relationship. They've got to understand the brand values and the brand and the story for them to tell your story. That's like basic stuff. Like they need to know it. So if a small brand is going out there, going out to try and do this, the advice I always give them is nurture that. Just find a bunch of people within your customer base, talk to them, build a relationship with them, chat to them, and then they will go out and they'll create on your behalf and be a part of it, and just like platform them and celebrate them every single time someone talks about your brand online. Is you like and you comment and you reshare and you put them into their CRM email, just like, thanks so much to whoever who did this. It's not that hard, just to kind of be nice and be kind with it, but just do that enough and you'll build up a bit of a groundswell.
Brands out there, treat them like gold. Absolutely. And then Dave, just switching a little bit gears into the actual platforms out there. How are social platforms encouraging social commerce or helping social commerce? What's your opinion on that?
I suppose at TikTok we have, well, first of all, what works in the platform from an ads and organic perspective is what we're all talking about. Very human-led, very authentic, lo-fi, shot on a phone. Vertical. That's just what works. That's your best practice. Like there's loads of nuances there. You have to work with hooks and everything, all that sort of thing. But as a starting point, that's step one. A product on a white background following around the internet is gone. That's all. Thank God. It's scourge of e-commerce, like all. And even like these bespoke, beautiful Hollywood productions of a product, that's gone as well. That doesn't work on the platform. And what does work is the humans playing it. So we're really gung ho and supporting brands with this, because it's their path to success in the platform. And also we find it's kind of a new creative bar in the industry as well. Like if you get this working, you probably to other platforms, it might work well. But what we have is a TikTok creator marketplace. So the marketplace, any brand could go to. There's, I think last count is about over 500,000 creators there.
Wow.
And you can select creators by the demographics, people who follow them, what products have trended around them. Sort of wealth of data there to help you understand and pick and select a brand. For, say, I sell tennis rackets or something. There's a creator in over there, that building over there, and that building over there that can do that, and the price point is there. You can just brief them there within the system, and it brings you back into the ad system and the organic flow as well. So we have a whole platform within the platform for creators and brands to work with each other.
Do you think that devalues the sort of the authenticity of the advocacy if they aren't an actual customer and you're kind of searching them and you're kind of paying them to pretend it's like they're actors rather than in a world where authenticity is the currency that matters most? Like how do you sort of play that off? Because that seems almost counter to a lot about what TikTok's about.
Well, I suppose the people there are the ones who are the authentic, and we have a team, quite a substantial team who are working to understand and make sure these are the right creators to be featured in the marketplace. It's not just everyone gets put there. So there's that authenticity filter is being done by us as an organization. But I do get your point. It's not as I suppose good a way as going to finding real ambassadors and advocates for that brand. But given what we're talking about, the complexity and the daunting task for brands to find people, this is kind of one way we're kind of going to help brands. And we also, again, we encourage brands to in-house. Who do you have? Like, who do you have your customers? So we're doing all that as well. And we have a wealth of creative partners in our ecosystem who can work with brands as well. And any agency, we're trying to help cover all angles really. I do get your point. It's not as might come across slightly contrived working with these, but it's there to be tested and tried. I think social and humans in general isn't perfect. It's messy. So the thing is, you're gonna have to try and work with it and find what works best.
We find that across the board is it's part of a mix, right? As with marketing, everything's part of a mix. Is that brands would love to work with true brand ambassadors and customers, but sometimes that's not on offer, or they've worked with all of them. One brand that's got such a big, powerful program that they've actually saturated their customer base and they're working in new markets. So like if you're a British brand wanting to work in North America where you don't have any customers, so therefore you won't have any advocates, you've got to go at a different approach. But one of the things there is just like, well, still then there should be an expectation of education, of learning, gifting products, just get it into people's hands, and so they can sort of play it out, try it out for size first.
I mean, yeah. I was just going to say, I love the role of the affiliate world as well to drive all of this. You know, I think, again, there's, you know, there's some risk for brands where they're testing and trialing without knowing that impact of said person. But if there's ways, and there's so many new partners and technology and solutions to be able to layer in you know, an affiliate model that feels quite risk-free in terms of that trial, and creating a bit of that incentivization before you necessarily need to then take it to that fully paid format, you know, as a sort of as a middle ground, which I think is quite exciting.
I think that's a big shift that's going to or is already happening. I know that a lot of budgets have been pulled away and there's been a lot of disruption in this sort of influencer space. A lot of platforms are really struggling as they kind of budgets move away from it as people try and figure out what's going on, and in a lot of cases they're bringing them in-house. It seems that there is a similar trend that's happened. First of all, social media came out and there were a whole load of social agencies like that exploded and they did incredibly well, and then social media became in-house, and in fact it became such a sort of dismissive thing. It's the thing that the intern does in some organizations, even though it's like their biggest mouthpiece. But I have other opinions about that, but like it's something which is always done in-house, and then influencers came out and everyone's like, don't know how to do it, and then agencies start to explode and then it starts to be brought in-house, like social commerce, and there are some social commerce specific agencies that are popping up. There's a lot of TikTok agencies you said within your ecosystem because people just don't know how to do it, and it'll be interesting to see if that will probably go through the same trend and start to be bringing in-house.
It depends on the mindset you have as a business. I think if you're going to be a business that truly thrives, especially as we're the R word, recession, as we go through this period, like the brands that will a business that will truly thrive are customer focused, customer obsessed. So to that point around the intern who does social media, or the grad who's doing social commerce stuff over here in the corner, that's such you're missing the point. Like they're the people who are actually engaging with your customers. They have a feedback loop that you should be bringing back to the parts of the business. and they can create for this whole new space like TikTok. And so they should be the ones given more responsibility. They should be empowered because they are on the front line with your customer. If you want to thrive today and tomorrow, you want to be there.
Yeah,
Love it. Go ahead, Camilla.
I don't know, this is changing subject completely, but we're talking a lot about social commerce off brand platforms and obviously talking about how it's not brand led. However, I did just want to touch on as well what I think is quite exciting in terms of brands trying to make their e-com platforms feel social in nature as well, and that reverse switch. So, you know, I can't remember when one of you said at the beginning, you know, the pop-ups from FOMO where it's like 5 people are shopping a brand at any one time, through to I was talking to a company yesterday called Gander who have you know, these pop-up box pops that when you're sitting on a PDP page, you start feeling almost like you're in a world of TikTok in terms of video streaming, but not embedded in the page, so it feels like you've just blended your social world and the world of e-com at once. You know,
e-commerce sites are so static. Like that's the
yeah.
thing. But it's only now that it used to be, oh, the product, my background, great. Then now we have a model. Like, why can't that be more? Like, why can't that be a video and they're actually trying it on there and then, like, you know, I think it's a great point.
It's integrated.
And there was another one I just thought was like, this just blowing my mind in terms of it. They're currently only have a solution for publisher sites, but it's going to shift hopefully social platforms as well. A company called Carted, where you can be, say, reading an article and put like 3 items in your basket from 3 different brands, and you check out on that page. You don't even leave, and then you get those 3 different delivery confirmations from the brands. You never even need to leave that page, so you never even have to enter that world. For multi-brand shopping as well, because you know, there's still obviously there's plenty of solutions for that single brand in-app, in-platform shopping piece, but
you're removing the retailer from it, but it's still direct to consumer, but it's multi-brand direct to consumer.
Because that's what people like stores or department stores for a long time, where you could get like multiple things at once. Then suddenly there was this, you know, the shift of, okay, you could then shop in-app and make it more convenient, and that compressed commerce, but it's still only sold for one brand, and now you can, you know, all those shifts.
And it aligns to like the actual, I suppose, culture on the street, where it's like, for like, what are you wearing? That kind of question. And you can see it in magazines and stuff, and it's like this from this brand. Why can't that be translated into these tech spaces where you can just...
Well, yeah, what was it you were talking about, the red dress analogy to me earlier?
Well, with the AI,
Yeah.
being able to, I've spent a lot of time on ChatGPT.
Number 1 applicant over here.
Everyone wants me to go really deep on the latest AI research, but that's just like blowing my mind, because like we can take let's just say, for example, we want to create the perfect piece of content to persuade me to buy a particular product, is that the AI can take our public information, aka our Instagram account, where we've got our faces on there, our likes, our tastes, our likeness as well, and that's quite important. And then we've got a particular product, a red dress, a blue suit, whatever that we have, also an entire likeness, and then the AI will be able to stitch that together to show a picture of me walking down the street in a blue suit, doing whatever. And this means that creative has just been completely rethought, because an AI is going to do something that's better and able to scale better than anything that's ever been before. So what do we mean? How do we sort of tap into that customer experience? And where I think it gets very interesting, like the AI aside, because that's another rabbit hole. But is
I was going to say,
I'm not going to go into that. The kind of the social commerce element of it is because we all have such good, so efficient content creation, whether that's text or image, which is AI enabled in many ways, in a very, very short period of time. I predict over that period there, what becomes more important then is the distribution mechanic. It becomes the trust channel that you do, which is when social commerce, a trusted person that you like, who you see, or you're inspired by, you're just browsing through TikTok, you've never heard of them, but what they create is very convincing, enough so that enough people liked it and the algorithm put it forward, right? So that then becomes the piece. And it's what I think brands will and do find the hardest, is to relinquish the control. And you were talking about the idea of an e-commerce site which has content with someone's, you know, with like a very generic white background, someone's face on it. Now at Duel, we have a user-generated content tool, and we have tens of thousands of pieces of incredible UGC for many of our brands, and we can literally just power all their e-commerce set pages, and we haven't been able to get a single brand to do it. They just don't want to let the people. So it's like you can be entirely UGC, and they're like, yeah, but the models and the shoots. And we have managed to reduce some content creation budget, so they do only one shoot a year rather than 5 because they're using it, but still the e-commerce sites look the same, and it feels
It's so
really old
limiting,
school,
I know.
like and so I think that'll be a thing that we'll see changing a lot more, is like you're saying, that experience, that social experience, is in the same way that wherever you are now, whether you're now on TV ads, you see people clapping and in a way a TikTok style effect where it changes from one scene to the next scene, is now the norm of the way that people consume content. I suspect the way that we buy and the way that we present and the way that we market will then sort of follow this trend. So I think we will see a lot more UGC and creator-led content on product display pages, but be amazed. It's blowing me away how hard it's been.
We've got 10 minutes left, and we have a lot of brands on here who are popping through with questions. So before I really want to get to you guys out there, what are some examples of brands that are thriving in the social commerce space? Any examples of brands who are doing this really well? I know we've just talked about a few examples there. So any other ones that could be useful for our audience today?
I could start. I call out Wild Cosmetics, Wild Deodorant. They're doing amazing stuff on TikTok in particular. From how they're working and creating their organic content that feeds into ads, that they're doing quite significant volumes, and they've really nailed it authentic. They're doing a lot of it in-house. So just the creative mindset and muscle they have for this new space. I think they're one of the leaders in the UK, and also they've just started doing live shopping the last couple of weeks, and really starting to evolve that. And this is what I say to brands, is with this new live shopping phenomenon that's coming over, it's, if you think of it as QVC, that's fine. That's their kind of go-to bias or mental model. But I challenge brands to make this whole new place for shopping. Because you as a shopkeeper, try and do something completely wild. Like go. It's a whole new place to do something. So try it out. And while they're starting to do that, they're starting to get really interesting and creative in this new space, while also having their whole organic and ads side.
Great. So we have the authentic first leading into a wider strategy. What else do we have out there?
So we've seen quite a lot of, I think the leaders in this space are beauty and fashion brands, in terms of they're very visual, they're very social first, and also they know their customer is on social, rather than a lot of brands, they kind of pretend they're not necessarily, but like they're very much, all right, this is our channel, and they invest heavily in it. And so and we've seen some really great programs, people building large communities of advocates and creators who will go out there and kind of creating amazing content, putting out there, and then driving very substantial amounts of revenue through it. So I think quite a few in the jewelry space. One of our favorites, Monica Villa, they're working with thousands and thousands of creators, and the hashtag MV Insiders is just like hundreds of thousands of pieces on there. So that one's incredible. Brands like Neon, in terms of the candles and things like that. Mint Velvet are doing a phenomenal job, very curated but content, but still kind of hundreds of creators putting things out there. I think there's just I think anyone who is, like I said, relinquishing the power, just letting these guys tell the story, and just like empowering them with here's our product, here's why we believe, this is what we believe, and then say, go and tell people what you think.
I think to that point, I think if you're a CMO and you have a book of brand guidelines, throw it out the window. Honestly, that's it. I just think you have to just throw it out the window and let the real people, your advocates, guide your brand, and they'll be the winners as well.
I think what's important when you talk about like best case examples, it's easy to sometimes think about the bigger brands that have a lot of big teams, big spending power, ability to bring in amazing partners like Duel. But actually, sometimes it's even the startups, I think, which are doing exciting things. Going back to your point about the reliance on big shoots and that big creative, they don't have the money for those big budgets and creative.
Budgets these days.
So their creative starts raw and starts with real people and starts with 3 employees around the table. And actually, it's where you see some of your best work, where it's actually that just getting scrappy, getting real, and as you say, putting the power, trusting in your brand, that the voices will tell it in a way that might not be exactly how you told it, you would have told it, but it's authentic and it's their interpretation of your brand.
Like them or loathe them, like that's what Shein's successful is coming from, and so much of that kind of content, it's that authentic message that you're using people.
We've got a couple audience questions here, so thank you all for sending these through. Let's see how many we can get through. We have, as a brand who has dipped their toe into social commerce, we've kind of gone over this a little bit, but this is a good one to touch more on. Not having the bandwidth to fully figure it out yet, as a lot of brands out there have not. What are like 3 main steps they can take or actions if we kind of take the discussions we've been having today and whittle it down to some best practices? What can the brands do tomorrow in-house to start building out more of a social commerce strategy or channel? If you had to pick 3.
I would say I'd start off with just reach out to your own channels and offer it. Just say, look, we're looking for creators, we're looking for brand ambassadors. Are you one? And a creator is not an influencer, right? This isn't someone who's got millions of followers. It will be someone who self-identifies as a creator. They could have 3 followers, but the fact that they do that, it's unlikely they only have 3 followers if they create and put themselves out there. But it's a modest audience. But if they're following you, they're fans of you, and they self-identify as a creator, and you say, do you want to do this? And we'll give you some free product, right? It costs you virtually nothing to do that. And then they will then sign up. Just start then engaging with them, set a WhatsApp group up, a Slack channel, an email list, and then just start building and nurturing those guys to say, look, we'll give you free products if you start creating. And then stop being prescriptive. Don't tell them what you want them to say. And also don't worry, you will get breakage. 10% of that content, that the products you send out will not get any content created on it. And some people won't create content for 3 months afterwards, but just like trust in it, because they will trust in you, trusting in them.
Great. Anything else to add on that one?
I would just be like same tactic, but on different channels. So identify your top 20, even start with top 20 customers, start nurturing them, say thank you to them, gift them something early, a new product launch, bring them to the fold. And then the third tip would be just look at your employees. And even if that's 2 of them, what can you do and how can you nurture it?
I'd agree with the employees one. Your next company meeting, ask everyone in the audience who has TikTok and who's posted on TikTok, and then give them a raise.
Yeah. And also, why do they love the brand, right? I think we talk to a lot of brands. It's really interesting when we put those questions out there and see what kind of brand values actually resonate with employees or with customers. And brands are sometimes surprised. They might have a top 1 or 2 values that they think, but it might be something else. So starting with those customers and those employees and asking them the question is a great place to start. Great. Okay, we have another one. How do you manage audience concerns about privacy and lack of protection on transactions made over social commerce platforms, particularly with an older audience demographic? Privacy and lack of protection on transactions made.
Good question.
How much transactions are you actually driving through TikTok as a platform itself, or how much of that goes towards the brand.com?
Oh, it's mainly .com. And I think that comes down to the structures and rigor that business has.
Right.
That's it. It's how you're dealing with everything from GDPR to so on and so forth, and your own supply chain, your own deliveries, everything that the whole shebang. I think that's more business operations to look at.
And that's a different demographic, I guess, as well.
Yeah. But I would also, I think my advice in everything is focus on the low-hanging fruit and where there's opportunity. If there's audiences that are resistant to the movement or whatever you're trying to do, it's going to take a whole lot more work to try and convert them immediately. So
I think that kind of goes back to what we're saying, the trust and authenticity. If you're having people talking about that product or brand to those people that they trust and believe in, that they're advocating for this brand they bought from, I think that kind of social proofing gets over that hurdle.
And also, we were talking about the cool and sexy TikToks of the world, right? There is the old big F, right? We've got big blue Facebook. And actually, I'm nerdy enough to have gone through all the data that people use to get the stats around the $3.3 trillion by 2028. And a huge amount of that revenue is coming through Facebook Marketplace. And they're kind of counting that as revenue that's coming driven through social, which is debatable, but Facebook is a massive channel, and my parents are on Facebook, and most people's are, and there is also already a huge amount of revenue happening. And this is thinking about, these are forums, these are Facebook groups where people are saying, hey, I need a thing, and someone says, oh, by the way, I use this, I found it really good.
I think
if they go and buy, that's social commerce. It's probably already happening with that.
I was just going to say, I think Facebook is actually, for all of their challenges and faults, it's still, no one else has cracked that closed, safe community world. And so whatever topic you're in, whether you're in beauty or new first mums, or people going through PE with Joe and losing weight, there's really safe spaces where people really rely on those communities, and they're almost it's quite powerful, quite scary powerful, the influence they have on one another there, and the decisions they make.
Yeah, probably more influential than TikTok. If you stumble on something, but you feel someone you genuinely trust says buy something, you go and you buy. So the conversion rate and the time to purchase is much shorter.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got
it's
one.
almost like a marketplace of needs as well. I feel like they almost put out like a I'm looking for, like you don't see that on the other options.
That's true. We have one here with what does my brand need to do to start paying attention from a social commerce perspective that they're currently not? How can brands adapt and move into this space if they don't see it quite as a priority yet? So I feel like this is maybe from brand to maybe, wider company, they don't see this as a need to act now. I would just listen to some of the stats you said at the beginning of the session and re-question, if I'm really honest, in terms of that priority. I mean, the headroom, the number one country of adoption of social commerce is actually Thailand at 88%. UK is still around 46%. Headroom is vast, but if you're talking about the trillions and numbers, I can dream coming up.
and yeah, so I think sharing some facts would help.
I've got some fact sharing.
I think you have to look at it, if you look at past eras and things, like it's like there was the internet, like you should be there if you're a brand. Then there was the pivot to mobile, should be doing that. I think this is the new one where it's human-led, creator-led, marketing and commercials. And I think this is it's just it's going to be here for forever. I think just you have to lead in.
And dare I say cheaper?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, so, but I
have a phone.
I talk to a lot of peers all the time and friends in the industry, and where it is the tide has definitely turned. But I remember a lot of conversations only 3 years ago where people would say, wait, your title is advocacy director, what do you actually do, and how do you actually get a business to believe the impact you can be making in a world like that? And I just think the proof is there now in the data points, and if you can shift the cost of acquisition into a different model.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you're working at a brand that's not quite ready for it and won't adapt to it, that's great. When your brand doesn't survive, there'll be lots of other brands you can go get a job at. If you want to look at it negatively. But sorry. But the other thing is that you were saying about the advocacy is we've been tracking that from a job title perspective. When we started talking about advocacy, I'd say about 5 years ago, there was about 10 roles on LinkedIn, and you were one of them, I think. And then now there are thousands, and it's become a thing. But what I don't think is it's not particularly well understood. So advocacy is basically word of mouth, generally happening online, and it's any way that someone who's a fan of the brand or a customer is supporting or recommending it over a period of time. And that's the definition in terms of it's that relationship that they have with them, which is key. And I think so much about social commerce is just the output. It's the outcome you get of great advocacy. When you sort of put those together. So what a brand can do is that they can work really focused on, well, how do I nurture those relationships with my existing customers to give them a remarkable experience so that they become fans. And once they become fans, then how do I get them to tell other people about it? And once I've done that, how do I get them to do it again? And it's just like run through those and think about how do I just add value in every single touch point, and then the advocacy will take care of itself. And once you've got that, it's all going to happen on social, so you're going to be fine.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I guess the last question we've got time for today is, how does social commerce impact the high street and the future of in-person shopping experiences?
Well, to believe that statistic I shared earlier in terms of it overtaking retailers, I think there's quite a big shift. There's a big movement of, I think it's called Robo. I don't know whether you meant the acronym of research online by offline in terms of a shift. I think the role in offline shopping is going to be actually bigger than over the last couple of years in terms of, you know, the post-COVID world and that return to discovery. So I think there's going to be always that relationship between the two of them. I can't imagine a world personally where in-person doesn't exist, but I think it will be very different. I mean, maybe there won't be retailers, maybe you'll go into an equivalent of what Selfridges looks like, and it's basically all of us sharing, you know, sharing our wares and, you know, mini marketplaces offline, you know, I don't know, but I struggle to see a world where it's gone completely.
Yeah, I think it's following your customers wherever they are is the kind of principle, but also like you start to see a lot of talk of like, how does a D2C brand, e-commerce brand exist in an omni-channel world? So I think we've seen kind of best in class in the UK with the opening of Gymshark's store on Regent Street. I was blown away by that. It was like, this is a full multi-purpose space. It's a gym in the store. And it just brought, and of course they're a brand who kind of led the charge in this creator-led movement, and they're bringing those principles of the customer and applying what they know and what they learn from the customer into that store. And it's like, there's a gym and that people can go and sort of, like, we know how much gyms cost in London, but it's free there for their customers. Just these things, like really thoughtful, really customer focused, obsessed. And if you apply those principles and that thought and mindset to, if it's your .com, your shop on TikTok, or your store or pop-up, whatever, you're going to win out.
Huge omni-channel play there, for sure.
Yeah, and I would add to that social commerce isn't, you'd be forgiven to thinking social commerce is just direct consumer brands advertising makeup with like creators on TikTok. And this is what it is it's an umbrella term that actually I think allows brands to be able to focus a lot of disparate things that have sat in other parts of an older school infrastructure, you know, CRM over here, PR here. Where does influencers go? They kind of go with their PR, and we've got social. No one really knows what to do with a lot. Social commerce actually brings it together. It's any commerce, any revenue that is influenced by social. It doesn't have to happen online. Think of the feta cheese you're referring to. I bet, but none like sold across the land. That's all been bought in store, but it's influenced by social. And so I think by actually freeing yourself of those and just thinking, well, how do I influence the opinions of my customers? Where is their attention? Well, 120 minutes a day is spent on TikTok. Well, there's a good place to spend your time to try and influence and to try and do that. And then where they purchase, it doesn't matter. Do you need to attribute it? It would help if you could, but also doesn't matter too much.
But that's where social commerce as well, like, straddles the gap. Like, let's say, for example, I was shopping a fashion brand that didn't have an in-person, you know, outpost. But if I can see someone who's my body shape wearing it on their channel, or even somehow the brand housing it, then it removes, you know, partly removes the need to even go in and try it, because half of the challenge of traditional e-commerce was, well, there's a beautiful model that's a size 8 and that doesn't relate to me. You know? So I think social commerce can also blend the offline online shopping experience and bringing a bit of reality to D2C.
Definitely.
And reduce returns as well, and the carbon footprint that's kind of happening with a lot of fast fashion. That's what 40-50% standard return rate is. Actually, if you show a real person wearing it, that will, and it has been shown to actually reduce.
Interesting.
Definitely all complementing each other in that big wheel of where your customers are and where they want to be. So lots for brands to take in. We are out of time. However, as you all can see, there's so much to talk about with this subject and in this space. So we've actually recently launched a Future of Social Commerce for 2023. We've published the report on our website, so that's accessible to all. You can just go to duel.tech, and it's in the top nav there under the Future of Social Commerce. So if you want to read a little bit more, have a little bit more of a visual for what we've been talking about today. We go into lots of more detail on that report. And thank you for everyone who has come to join us today. If you have put a question in the chat, we will get back to you. I will send them to our panelists and we can get some, a dialogue started over email. So we've not forgotten about you. I've got you all right here. And finally, thank you to our 3 panelists. It's amazing to have you here today. And I hope you've enjoyed your time.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for helping lead the way in this category. We need partners like you guys to do it.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Great.
Camilla. Bye, everyone. Have a great evening.